Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 81 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
Very good, my friend, very good. So this is number 81. It's another show. This one is going to be not slightly different. It's going to be the same as per usual, to be honest. But what we're going to do is we're going to do part one, the review part. Then we're going to go to the first guest. Then just as we start part two, we go to the news. There's not too much to talk about in the news, but we're going to discuss the heavyweight division. Just briefly, we're going to discuss the whole Joshua situation, who we think he should fight next, and blah, blah, blah. So there's going to be a little segment there. So it's going to be review, interview, news, Joshua segment, preview, then of course the final second guest of the show. So we're going to dive straight into part one being the review part, as I just said. We're going to start with a card that took place last Tuesday. Actually, we should have mentioned it on last week's show, but it's just one fight to mention on this bill. Charles Martin moved to 24 career wins. Of course, he's got the one loss to Anthony Joshua and of course the one draw. He picked up a TKO victory in round 2 over Byron Paulie. He's he's got a winning record, but he's been in there with a few guys and been stopped. I think Luis Ortiz took him out in a round, so he's been stopped a number of times. Charles Martin did what he expected to do. One thing I will touch on, Charles Martin, who many people kind of think he went a bit weird, he went a bit crazy, whatever, in the time that he was out of boxing. Some people thought he wouldn't even fight again. He was actually lighter than he was for the Joshua fight, so I don't know, wrap your head around that one, but it is what it is. We thought we'd give it a mention there. Moving over now to another bill. This one was last weekend, obviously, in Bulgaria, this one. Kubrat Pulev topped the bill against Kevin Kingpin Johnson. Kevin Johnson, he went on a bit of a hiatus after being knocked out by Anthony Joshua. He's back. He had another big fight here in Europe once again. Kubrat Pulev picked up the win, but I tell you what, I didn't watch it. It was for the WBA Intercontinental Heavyweight title. As I said, I didn't watch it, but he didn't get him out of there. And I think I might have said it on last week's show that he probably won't get him out of there. But I was hoping I was wrong. Because, Pulev really should be getting Kevin Johnson out of there. I think Pulev is really in the top 3 or 4 heavyweights in the world, in my opinion. So, I just don't think he's the biggest puncher. Kevin Johnson's obviously got a decent chin. But yeah, not very impressive looking at that win on paper there. But Kubrat Pulev now 25-1. Kevin Johnson 30-8 with one draw. That's it for Bulgaria. Moving over now to a bill that took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. One fight to mention on this bill. Tevin Farmer, he moved to 25 career wins inside 30 fights with a unanimous decision win over 10 rounds at super featherweight against Arturo Santos Reyes, who had a record of 19-7, now 19-8. And the final bill to mention of last week, it was it was a big weekend for boxing, especially in Britain, but it wasn't too much going on elsewhere. And to be completely honest, in terms of number of fights, there wasn't too much going on in Wembley either. Obviously, there were 90,000 people in attendance. We were supposed to get 7 fights on the bill. For whatever reason, it ended up only being 5 fights. I think they ran out of time, which was quite crazy, because when there was only 7 fights, that's not a huge bill. Some people were quite annoyed about that. About the fact that, there were Olympians on the bill that have only had 1 or 2 fights or, things like that, and they were really filling up the bill. But at least it was a little bit extra bang for your buck, even if it is a bit, lower level kind of fights at this stage of their careers. But we didn't even get that. It only had 5 fights on the bill out of 7. We missed the Lawrence Okoli fight that was supposed to happen. He didn't end up fighting. And also Josh Kelly, who I actually kind of planned to get him on this week's show, but he didn't fight, so we didn't bother giving him a ring, but hopefully we get him on soon. But anyway, we got Joe Cordina. He picked up a TKO in round 1, so he moves to 2-0 now with 2 knockouts. He picked up a win over Sergey Vib, who had a record of 7-7. He wasn't in the best shape. Joe Cordina, really, it was one of those fights. It was completely one-sided. He looked absolutely terrified, the opponent, Vib. I can't remember which country he was from. He was absolutely terrified in the corner at the start of the fight. You just knew in his face, this fight's not going long, and it didn't even get through the first round. So, a good win, I suppose, but not a great fight. And it shouldn't really be a fight on pay-per-view, in my honest opinion. But that's not knocking Joe Cordina whatsoever. The guy's really talented. I'd just like to see him, make his few first fights on cards where you don't have to really pay to watch it. If you put it into perspective, this card had 5 fights. The pay-per-view was £20. That's £4 per fight. That fight didn't even get out the first round, as I say. So it is what it is anyway. Moving up the undercard, Katie Taylor, she moved to 5-0. She took on her first unbeaten opponent, I believe. Her opponent, Nina Menke. I think I'm saying that name wrong, but she was 5-0. She's now lost her 0. She was knocked out or TKO'd in round 7. It was obviously scheduled for 10 2-minute rounds. Minky was also cut on the eye, or just above the eye, to be specific. But no, another decent win there for Katie Taylor. But it was quite interesting because the other lady came to give it a go. She really did. And for the first time, we've kind of seen Katie Taylor have to really think what she's doing in there. So that was pretty good to see. Moving up the undercard once again, Luke Campbell moved to 17 wins. Of course, the 1 loss as well. He took on Darlis Perez, former world champion, 33-2 with 2 draws, now 33-3. Perez started really well in this fight, Ayaz. I thought that it was a good fight when it got made. I thought that Luke Campbell, I don't want to say he's a hype job, but he won the gold, he turned pro, he got beat by Mendy. And I've heard lots of excuses. Some people say he shouldn't have been anywhere near a ring that night, but it's not good enough. He still lost the fight in the fashion that he lost the fight. It was very clear. And then to get straight in there with Darlis Perez, who we know, he's a former world champion, but he's not the greatest. Crawler stopped him. I thought it was a decent fight in terms of levels at this point for Luke Campbell. And straight away in the first few rounds, I thought, oh boy, yet again, he could probably lose this fight. He was the second best for pretty much the first half of the fight. He only went 9 rounds, but he managed to, I suppose maybe the fitness levels kind of kicked in, and Darlis Perez kind of tired down the stretch. Luke Campbell did warm into it. I think maybe he could be turning into a bit of a slow starter, but ultimately he did get him out of there in round 9. So a TKO win there for Luke Campbell. Ayaz, I'm going to go over to you. Did you watch the Luke Campbell fight? If so, were you impressed at all?
I'll tell you something. I'm impressed. I'm very impressed with Luke Campbell. Now I'll tell you something why. Because first, when he fought Mendy on the Dillian White, Anthony Joshua undercard, he lost that fight. Since then, he has come back and fought 2 very good fighters. Obviously, Darlis Perez, we've seen him fight against Andy Crawler, where Anthony Crawler dropped him for the WBA World Champion. Now, Luke Campbell's beaten him. Luke Campbell's a very good, talented fighter, but now he's mandatory to face. He's mandatory for Jorge Linares' WBA belt. Now, that fight, in my opinion, it's a very, very tough fight, I reckon, for him. This is because Linares is a very good fighter, and I can see Linares outschooling Luke Campbell.
Yeah, I would even probably go far enough to say he might even stop Luke Campbell. I hope I'm wrong, I really do. I actually think Luke Campbell's quite alright, I really do. I want him to do well, but I don't know, he's been a bit slow starting now. When you think about it, he turned pro pretty much the same time as Joshua. And I know Joshua's been quite fast-tracked. He's 19-0 at the moment. We're going to get onto his fight in a minute. He's now 19-0, of course. You should probably know what happened in that fight if you're listening already. But Luke Campbell's had 18 fights. Joshua's had 19 fights, but Luke Campbell, the position he's in, the place he's in, he's, as you say there, he's mandatory for the WBA, which I completely forgot actually, so I'm glad that you brought that up. But he hasn't really done anything yet, has he? He hasn't won a British title. He's gone for these international belts. They get you kind of fast-tracked in the rankings. When he stepped up in level, he lost. And the other day, he wasn't looking good, but then he turned it around. So I guess we're going to give him a bit of credit there. But yeah, if he takes on Linares, I really don't give him any chance in that. But I hope that he was, if he could pull off the upset, wow, oh wow, he's going on to stardom. But I do want to see him do well. But we'll leave that there. Luke Campbell now 17-1. Darlis Perez 33-3 with 2 draws. Moving up the undercard once again, the final fight of the undercard, Scott Quigg 32-1 with 2 draws, took on Viral Simeon 21-1. Scott Quigg, I was a little bit surprised, Ayaz, that he brought over Freddie Roach. I know that he's now training him, but I didn't actually think that he was going to bring... I didn't think he was going to come out. I thought that Freddie Roach was going to probably be a little bit too busy with, whatever he's got going on stateside. But no, it was good to see Freddie Roach over here. That was good. He seemed to kind of take it in. It was a huge week. That every event that surrounded it was massive. And Scott Quigg, it was a bit of a war, to be honest, Ayaz, wasn't it? The Simeon guy, I didn't really give him much credit going in. I thought that Scott Quigg's going to probably knock him out pretty easy. Simeon... Obviously, he lost pretty handily to Lee Selby, and he drew with a complete journeyman in his last fight. Or not drew, he lost just by. It was a really close fight. He just about lost. Just about won the fight. So I didn't really think he was coming in with any good form. I thought that he was going to probably lose to Scott Quigg, who's eager to impress, eager to bounce back from the loss to Frampton in some ways. It was a big stage. He's got the new trainer. I thought he was going to try and be pretty impressive, but I think he did try to be pretty impressive, but it just didn't work for him. I think, the other guy was a lot more game than I would have thought he would have been going into the fight, and he proved me wrong a little bit. He can seriously fight, and Scott Quigg was, he was made to think about things a lot in that fight as well. It turned out to be a little bit of a war. It was the best fight on the card, but it did drag a little bit. But not so impressive, that win for me, for Scott Quigg there, but nonetheless he gets the job done. Anything to add on that one, Ayaz? Scott Quigg and Simeon?
The thing with Scott Quigg, we seen him fight when he fought Jose Cayetano on the Joshua Molina fight, he performed very well. But I've seen a difference with him in Freddie Roach. I'm not quite sure his, but I've seen a bit of a difference. But the thing is, this guy, I think Scott Quigg should have knocked him out. I don't know, something was lacking with Scott Quigg that very night. Scott Quigg did land some very good shot, and trust me, this fight was very good. For me, it was very interesting because it looked a little war, but I think Scott Quigg should have knocked him out. And to be honest, now he's mandatory for Lee Selby. When that fight happens, Josh Quigg versus Selby, I'm telling you one thing. Selby is very skillful. I know he may not have a very high knockout percentage, but I'll tell you something, he's going to outskill and box him. Scott Quigg, I now reckon Lee Selby will beat Scott Quigg.
If I had to pick who I'd want to win, I think it's pretty clear that I'd want Lee Selby to win. We've had him on the show a bunch of times. We love the Selbys on this show. But, I think we've got to take into account Simeon's only got the one loss. He hasn't been stopped in his pro career. Maybe he's got a decent chin. Scott Quigg just, as I say, wasn't overly impressive. But yeah, when he fights, or if he fights Lee Selby, hopefully we do see that. Lee Selby tweeted during the fight saying #easywork, which was obviously an indirect at Scott Quigg. I think size is a big part in that. I think Lee Selby's huge at the weight. I think obviously Scott Quigg's not small at the weight, but we've got to remember he was making super bantam not too long ago. Now he's up at featherweight. It's, I think size may be a factor there, but I think, that's a great fight. That is actually a fight I'd really like to see. I think Scott Quigg needs some kind of way to get back at title contention. But I'm not sure he'll be able to beat Lee Selby, but it's a great fight for sure. Moving up to the main event now, and I will just say Scott Quigg now 33-1 with 2 draws. Viral Simeon 21-2. Moving up to the main event now, the big one. Anthony Joshua 18-0, putting his IBF World Heavyweight title on the line. Also the WBA Super Heavyweight title and the IBO World Heavyweight title both at stake as well. Wladimir Klitschko in the other corner, 64-4, huge experience on his side. Well, as we got to be honest, it was a really good heavyweight fight. We don't get to say that too much, especially at the top level. The best heavyweight fight I can think of at the top of my head in recent times would have probably been Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora. That was a great heavyweight fight. But I can't really think of any others at the moment, just fresh off the top of my head, that was better than this fight. It was a very entertaining fight. Joshua answered a lot of questions, I suppose, in some ways. I'm going to get onto my thoughts, and I've got some strong thoughts as well. So some people may be a little bit offended, but you know how it is. We be completely straight down the line, and we are very honest on this show. So I'm going to go over to you, Ayaz. Give your thoughts on the main event at Wembley in front of 90,000 people, and I'll say my piece on the fight afterwards.
Wow, what a fight this was. I haven't seen a heavyweight fight for the last 3 years as good as this one. We've seen Klitschko fight David Haye. Klitschko outscored him. We've seen Fury. Fury beat Klitschko nicely. But this fight, it was a very good fight because this was a step up. This was a huge step up for Joshua. Now, in the first 2 rounds, you see Joshua going for the early knockout. You can see that easily, going for the knockout. And obviously he was landing. That Klitschko's jab was obviously hurting him. I can see from round 1, I gave round 1, round 2 to Joshua, round 3 to Klitschko, round 4 to Klitschko, and then Joshua drops him in round 5. And then round 6, Klitschko right hand throws to the right hand and drops to Joshua. And Joshua was gone, in my opinion. I think Joshua was absolutely gone. You can see by his face. It's like he didn't have the energy to fight him. Round 6 and 7, I thought if Klitschko was a bit younger, just say he was like 37, 38, 6, yeah, I reckon Klitschko would have knocked him out. That's one thing, yeah. And obviously, that's in the round 7 or round 8. If he was much younger, like 37, 38, Joshua would have been gone. And also, another reason that Klitschko couldn't knock him out was because he's been inactive since November 2015. Since that loss to Tyson Fury, he's been out of the ring since then. And the thing is, after round 8, round 9, round 10, Joshua came out landing some huge uppercuts and various punches. And around 11, Joshua dropped him, Klitschko got back up. Joshua dropped him, Klitschko got back up. Joshua's throwing right hands. Klitschko's obviously not throwing nothing. But I can tell you something for a fact. I think that fight shouldn't have got stopped.
Yeah, some people are, split down the middle on should the stoppage have come at that point. Initially, I thought that the stoppage was... I don't really know, I think at first I didn't really react like it was a bad stoppage, but I completely have not watched the fight back at all. I need to watch the fight back, but my judgment doesn't really make up for much. But no, I just thought that we've not known if Joshua can take a punch, if Joshua's got a good chin. We've seen now that he took a great punch, he got back up, he showed the heart of a champion. He showed the grit and determination of a champion there. We've seen him go to the trenches as well in that fight, which, again, all these questions were unanswered going in. Also, as I say, I looked at Joshua's eyes, and Joshua's eyes, when he got knocked down, I wasn't sure he was going to get back up. He looked like, possibly he was staring at a loss and the end of everything. The whole empire would be crumbling. And he looked at that, and I think, that made him get back up. And that he showed a lot of heart. He can clearly take quite a few shots. He's clearly got a decent chin. We have to bear in mind that Vlad is 41, but they say power leaves you. It's the last thing to leave you when you're fighting. So yeah, I give Joshua a lot of credit because he showed the heart. I give him a lot of credit because he mixed it up as well. He went to the trenches, as I said. He threw. I've criticised Joshua before for just throwing the same shots, the straight shots all the time, 1-2, 1-2 all the time, head shots, not going down to the body. He did mix it up. He went down to the body, he threw, a load of uppercuts, and we've never really seen him move his head. I've knocked him on that as well, said that his movement's not good. He just stands in front of you. Some parts he was like that. I don't think his legs are the best, Anthony Joshua, but Wladimir kept loading up with that left hook, which we've seen him hurt a load of people with over the years, namely Kubrat Pulev. He got caught with that more times than I can count. And, he did a great job, Joshua, of ducking under that. And I was really impressed with his defensive moves. I got to be honest. I don't think he takes shots so well. I don't think even though he had the high guard up for the first few rounds, you could see his right hand was high. He was waiting for that left hook to come in, and Wladimir just, happily obliged to and just started jabbing. So, yeah, I want to go back to your scoring of it, Ayaz. Did you say that What was? How did you have it after you gave the first round to Joshua? You say.
Yeah, and yes, I gave the first 2 rounds to Joshua.
Okay, and the third round to Vlad.
Yes.
How did you? What I'll ask you then, if you scored it past, if you scored it right up to the 11th round, who did you have winning at the time of the stoppage? Do you know, or did you score it that far?
I didn't score it that far, but from the 8th round, I had Klitschko winning by 1 round.
Right, and so that was in the 8th. You had him by 1.
Yes.
Right, I see. Yeah, because my gut feeling, I wasn't scoring it, but my gut feeling in that 11th round was that Klitschko was winning the fight. Some people have been knocking Tony Bellew about his scorecards, especially for the, I think it was the Murray and Rosado fight. They were saying that, his scorecard was a joke. I can't remember it, but it was something. He's been knocked anyway for favouring the Sky fighters. But he actually had Wladimir 1 point up going into that 11th. And I think most people ringside did. I think they said that HBO did. Showtime might have had him up. It was one of those guys. Sky obviously had him up. I think the Germans, RTL, they had him up by 2. No one was giving that. No one had it to Joshua in that going into that 11th round. So the scorecards, which obviously you can't score round 11 because the round hadn't ended yet. The scorecards going into the 11th were absolutely disgraceful. They really, really were. Namely, Don Trella. The man actually had it 96-93, so 3 points in favour of Joshua, which I think is absolutely crazy. That is ridiculous scoring. It really is. That is shocking. Also, one judge had it to Wladimir, I think it was by 1 point, and the other judge, which obviously that's 1 apiece now, so that's that's a split decision sort of thing. And then just to make up for it, the other judge, which was Nelson Vasquez, he actually had Joshua up by 2 points. So I'm not sure what fight they were watching. It was horrible to think that no matter what, he was actually going to get robbed on the scorecards, Vlad. But I will say, I gave Joshua a bit of credit. Now is time for the critical part of what I'm saying here. Anybody who thinks Joshua's win last weekend over Wladimir Klitschko is better or bigger than Tyson Fury's win in November 2015, you really need to to think. I'm gonna break it down for you. If you don't agree with me, just listen to what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna break it down here. Let's not forget, Wladimir is now 41, and he was coming off of an 18-month layoff, or a 17-month layoff to be more precise. Joshua was losing at the time of the stoppage. Anyone will tell you that with eyes, including Sky. Whether they're biased or not, they had it fair, so you cannot knock Sky. Fury went over to Germany and fought Vlad in his backyard as a challenger. Vlad was the champion. Vlad hadn't lost in 11 years. Fury was also the underdog, okay? So Vlad was younger, he was more active and all that, and he kind of schooled him. He schooled him, to be completely honest. He did the job, he come through that test unscathed. Joshua did not come through that test unscathed. It was a life and death fight. I know that Tyson Fury sort of said that on social media. I'm going to switch it round the other way. Joshua was fighting in his backyard as the champion, as the favourite in the betting shops, against a man who's 41 and against a man who's coming off of a 17-month layoff. So it was all stacked against Klitschko. Now, the bookies are not silly. They're very, very clever. They're very, very smart. No one can say that a win from a favourite is better or bigger than a win from an underdog. That's the open and shut of it. Klitschko, as much as I like Fury, let me just say it, because if people think that I'm too much, Team Fury or whatever, I had money on Klitschko to knock Fury out when they fought. That's me being brutally honest, and I lost money on that. And I was so happy to lose money because I absolutely love Fury. And he did the job. But he was the underdog. It was all against him. And he won. He pulled off the win. He rocked up the whole division. Joshua hasn't rocked up the whole division here. He's done what many, including the bookmakers who really are the people that really know their stuff, they had him as a big favourite. And they got it right. So that's not. There's been no shocking stuff, and it was a life and death fight. Joshua tasted the canvas for the first time in his career, and there's an argument, Ayaz, as well, that Joshua could have been stopped in that 6th round. You know, he really could have been. I think the referee was very close to jumping in. I think, I'm going to talk about the knockdown. He caught Vlad with a great shot, put him down in round 5. Wladimir got straight back up to his feet. He took a few seconds, got straight back up to his feet. When he got back up, it was quite scary to see how quickly he recovered. His feet were completely all right. His legs were not shaking at all. They were strong. You know, he got on the bike a little bit. He was very clever. And while he was doing that, Joshua, the very inexperienced young lion, was trying to jump all over him, absolutely shot his load all over the place, had nothing left at all in the end few seconds of the 5th. When he come out in the 6th, obviously he still was very tired. That is when Wladimir hurt him. And when he went down, he thought about it as well. Then he got back up, and I give him credit for that. I really do. And then when he went on the ropes and Vlad was unloading on him, he dropped his gloves out of exhaustion and was taking shots. But I think that Vlad maybe not... Vlad's very clever. He didn't want to rush in and shoot his load. He wanted to, give pressure, but educated pressure at the right time. And I think he was a little bit too patient. I think that was the problem there. He could have got him out of there if he really went for it. I really do believe that. And some referees would have waved it off, by the way, at that stage. I think we cannot forget that. Wladimir done unbelievably well. He can hang his head high. He's gave Joshua a brilliant fight. I didn't know for sure about the rematch clause before the fight. I think maybe Wladimir revealed it at the press conference or something, but I didn't really know until the fight week that there was a rematch clause in the contract for both men. And would I like to see a rematch? Yeah, I think I would. But the only thing is, this rematch, if it does happen, needs to happen as soon as possible. Because the longer we leave it, Wladimir is getting older. He's getting more inactive now. Joshua is still learning on the trade, and he'll tell you that. He's getting better and better all the time. So to let this go on, to let this wait another 9 or 8 or 10 months or whatever, in that time, Joshua's still learning his trade. He's going to learn so much from that fight there, whereas Wladimir won't really learn much from that fight. So if the rematch happens, it's got to happen soon. Otherwise, he really doesn't have much of a chance, Wladimir. But I just want to say credit to both men. It was a great fight, as I said. I give Joshua a lot of credit. I give Wladimir at 41 and a 17-month layoff a hell of a lot of credit. But I tell you what, I also give Tyson Fury a bit of credit because they both come up against Wladimir. They were big tests, and Tyson Fury went through it unscathed. Joshua didn't. And it was all in favour of Joshua going into that fight. But hey, I've spoke about it all week. I've been talking about it to everyone. I've probably missed out a few points here, but I hope I made a decent point for those listeners. And that just about wraps up part 1. We've spoke a lot about the fight there. We've not much really went on last weekend. We've gone through it as much as we could, especially the main event. 90,000 people in Wembley. What a seriously massive event. It's fantastic that the UK can bring crowds like that. Credit again to Eddie Hearn and Matchroom for putting on the show. Even though it only had 5 fights on the bill, it did the job. That's it for the review, and we're now going to bring in guest number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a man that had a very busy weekend last week amongst the 90,000 fans at Wembley. It's of course the trainer of Wladimir Klitschko, Mr. Johnathon Banks. Jonathan, once again, welcome to the show.
Hey man, it's always good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's always a pleasure having you on, my friend. So firstly, John, you've been in Germany, obviously, in front of 50-odd thousand fans in Wladimir's corner. This time you were in the UK with 90,000 fans looking on. Was it a lot different to Germany in terms of atmosphere?
Listen, man, I tell you this, and this is nowhere to sugarcoat it. Every time I've been to the UK, I did a couple fights at the O2 World. It was awesome. But to be in Wembley, 90,000, another 10,000 outside, and 90,000 on the inside, amazing. Atmosphere, amazing. That night of Saturday, on the 29th of April, I believe made England one of the biggest household names in the sport of boxing right now because nobody else can do that. There's no other. Like, the English fans just come out so aggressive, so strong. To me, it was a beautiful name.
Yeah, it certainly was a huge, huge event, not just a boxing match, of course. I want to ask you this, Johnathon. Was it nerve-wracking for you walking out there? Because I've got to be honest, my heart was racing. My hands were shaking before they'd even walked to the ring. Like just the anticipation of the main event. I couldn't keep still. I was really nervous. How did it feel for you? And if you know how Wladimir felt, how did it feel for Wladimir as well, walking out there?
For me personally, it was normal. It didn't have no effect on me. My demeanor, if anyone who knows me, my demeanor is always the same. I mean, it doesn't faze me whether it's 1,000 or 90,000. And as you see, the walkout, everyone was around Wladimir walking so close and far with him. I was actually behind. I was behind the whole crowd, because I was just regular. This is just me. I just walk regularly normally to the ring. And, everybody was standing outside the ring. I had to say, excuse me. Then I walked into the ring. So for me, yeah, it was normal, me personally, because I was enjoying every second of that beautiful atmosphere.
And as you say that, your demeanor didn't change. It didn't really matter how many people were in there. Did you feel that you were walking into a hostile environment, or does that not even come into your head when you're walking out in such a big fight like that?
In boxing, at some point, you have to accept the fact that you're going to have people with you, you're going to have people against you. So once you accept that, and I accepted that way back in '96. So it doesn't matter who's with me, who against me. You get a lot of fighters who do great things in the sport, and you still get a lot of people in the media say negative things about them. So you can't do nothing to please people. Because it's like some people will never be satisfied. So meaning that in that hostile environment, whether it's hostile or not, it didn't really, it didn't really faze anyone. And in the beginning, yes, I think over half of the fans was against Wladimir, but the way he fought at the end of it, when his name was announced and they said something about him, like everybody stood and cheered and clapped for him.
Yeah, and he certainly deserves that down to a T. So I want to talk about the fight, obviously, Johnathon. How do you assess both men's performances? I'll start with Wladimir. How did you assess his performance?
Well, dealing with Wladimir, I believe that, and I told this is no secret. I told Wladimir this in the training camp of the fight. And I told him, I said, I know Anthony Joshua very well. We spoke on thousands of occasions, man. Actually, we also spoke again, not only after the fight, the next day after the fight, we spoke via phone. And I know the type of guy he is. He's a tough competitor. He's one of the best natural talents you will see. And all what he's doing is he's just naturally gifted, to do these things. And I assessed his performance, and I told him, I said, listen, if you hurt this guy, I said, you have to finish him, because if you let him recover, he will be one of your worst nightmares. That's exactly what I told him. And, I guess the situation was similar to that. But performance-wise, I honestly felt Wladimir, I felt he performed beautifully. I think he answered a lot of questions. A lot of people don't. The people who don't like Wladimir, they had to give him a hand clap for his performance. If anybody is a true sportsman or the true fan of the sport, I heard a podcast earlier today saying they don't know why the UK clapped for Wladimir, who just got his butt whooped. I hate stuff like that because this is boxing. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. When you got two athletes that put their lives on the line to put on a hell of a performance, you have to give a clap for both. You have to give applause for both fighters, really.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, anyone who you can't help but like Wladimir. You definitely can't dislike him. Not only in that performance right there, which was, one of the best heavyweight fights many people are saying they've seen in years. It was a brilliant fight. But not only that, but everything he's done before that, he is, and we all know it. It's no secret. I'm telling you, you know this more than I do. He's one of the best champions ever in the heavyweight division. So I can't understand why some people say that. That's ridiculous. But We'll leave that there. That's a different podcast.
Exactly.
But your assessment of Joshua's performance, because I got to be honest, for me, it really looked like Wladimir was in control for most of the fight. It looked like, it was clear to see that Wladimir was on the front foot pretty much for the whole fight, which we've never seen Joshua going backwards at all, because no one's come at him like that. But Wladimir was applying, very clever pressure. And, I'll just throw it down to you. What did you make of Joshua's performance? He obviously performed pretty well, but what did you make of it?
I thought Joshua was, like I said, he's a natural talent. He knew exactly what he wanted to do, but he couldn't really do what he wanted to do. And once he got hit and dropped, he said, okay, I have to change everything. And he made some adjustments and he changed, which was really, really, as you could tell, it was his intellect doing it more so than somebody telling him he has to change. He's a really bright and smart guy, really, really bright. And I like I say, I always did like he's gifted. He's a very gifted fighter. But I thought Joshua's performance towards the end was great because he got the job done. But I think if Wladimir would have continued to do as I suggested, then Joshua would have never had a chance to get back into the fight.
Did you feel, Johnathon, in your honest opinion, did you feel that you guys were ahead at the time of the stoppage?
Did I feel that way? No, because I judge when I'm in the corner. I judge my fighter hard because I know whether we home or not home. I know we in the UK. I know Joshua coming in as champion, and I know that I just don't see Wladimir getting a decision of a close fight. The fight is not like it was lopsided. The fight was close. Both fighters tasted the canvas. Both of them had to fight their way out of a round that they both was really hurting. So this wasn't like it was a one-way street. It was a close fight. And if the fight would have went 12 rounds, if they called it a draw, you couldn't have had a lot of boos. If they would have called it one way or another, you couldn't have been mad at the fight because what a natural fan wants is two guys to go out there and put everything on the line. And both guys did that night.
But Johnathon, without taking into account the fact that the fight's in the UK and you may end up with a bit of a hometown decision, did you feel at that point, in your own head, did you feel that you were winning the fight? I've got to be honest, I thought that you guys were winning the fight at the time of the stoppage.
Well, I thought the fight was close.
Okay.
I felt the fight was close because in 2 rounds there wasn't a lot of action, and I think the first 3 rounds, I don't think Wladimir opened up much in round 2 and 3. But what he didn't do round 2 and 3, he made up for in 6 and 7, and maybe even 8. Because Joshua wasn't doing that much. So I felt the fight was, in my opinion, the way I'm judging which fights landing and punches landing and what's not landing, I thought the fight was really close.
Yeah, I agree. I think I probably had it, with Wladimir probably just by a point at the point of the stoppage. Obviously, not scoring anything for that round 11. I believe Tony Bellew. He was obviously, he was with Sky. He's actually been under a little bit of scrutiny before for giving scorecards that are a little bit in favour of the home fighter, but he actually had Wladimir up by 1 point as well, which I think said a lot. But the judge, obviously, Don Trella, I believe it was, he had the scorecard 96-93 in favour of Joshua at the time of the stoppage, which I just cannot understand. And I went and looked back at that, and I wanted to find out how that's possible. So what that would mean is that let's just, to make it easy, let's just say that Wladimir knocked Joshua down in the first round, then Joshua knocked Wladimir down in the second round. Those are both 10-8s either way. He must have then scored a 10-10 round at some point, and then from there, that's 3 rounds down. For the next 7 rounds, because we did obviously 10 rounds were scored, he gave, I think it was Joshua 5 and Wladimir 2, which I just cannot understand. I think that's a bit of a crazy one. Yeah, it is what it is. That was pretty bad. Do you think, Johnathon, that Wladimir's 18-month layoff played a part in the outcome of the fight?
You know what? Had he won, I would tell you no. That's my honest opinion. I would tell you no. Because he lost, and I'm still going to say the same answer, no. I believe it I think it maybe played the part in his activity, an amount of punches he threw per round. But I don't think it played the part in. I can't say had he fought a tune-up fight, then he would have had more activity, or he definitely would have won. I'm not going to go on record and say anything like that, because Wladimir was fully prepared, in spite of what many people feel about me as his coach. He was fully prepared. We did everything that we possibly could to prepare for a victory for that night. And as you seen in his performance, to my opinion, he performed beautifully that night, outside of him not being able to come away with the win.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I want to ask you this one now, Johnathon. It's a bit of a, you've got to kind of think about this a little bit. But if Wladimir fought Joshua 18 months ago in November of 2015 in Germany as the champion, still with the 11-year unbeaten streak, do you feel that he would have beat Joshua then?
Well, that's a difficult one to answer, because had you asked me this 18 months ago, you asked me this 2 years ago, going into the Fury fight, I would have told you he would have beat Fury. Had he had a performance against Fury like he did against Joshua, then this fight wouldn't even went the rounds that it did. That's one thing you can't even put. I can't even put that in a scenario had he did it 11 months ago. Because I think the outcome may or may not have been different. It's just difficult to say. It's hard for me to give a commit to an answer to that.
Yeah, I think that goes hand in hand with the question I said before about the 18-month layoff playing a part. You said no, so yeah, I suppose they go together. Now, I've got to ask you this one, Johnathon. I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear your opinion on this, to be honest. Both of our top British heavyweights, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, have tested themselves against Wladimir. Both have come through that test. If the two versions of both men fought each other, who would win in your opinion? The Tyson Fury that beat Wladimir, or the Joshua that beat Wladimir? If they get it on, if somehow they were both able to fight to the same ability that they did, who would you say wins that fight?
Well, first, let's go to the assessment of each fight. The Wladimir and Fury and Wladimir and Joshua. The Wladimir and Fury, many people will disagree with what I'm about to say, but it's not what Fury did to win. It's what Wladimir didn't do that he lost. So if you pay attention to that performance, everyone was saying, wow, Vladimir's not doing nothing. He's not throwing any punches until the 12th round. You can't win a fight unless you throw punches. Okay, now let's go to the Joshua performance. Wladimir did throw punches in this fight. He did drop Fury. He got dropped, got back up. They both fought. It's like they both fought to the end. They both fought to one either one couldn't take it no more, or referee felt they had enough. So I think Joshua's performance was more impressive. Fury's performance was very impressive because he did it. He was the first to do it in over a decade. That's what made it so impressive. Not so much that he just beat the crap out of the guy. It wasn't that. I'm not, and again, I'm not taking nothing away from Tyson Fury. I like Tyson Fury. He got my utmost respect. In fact, any fighter who gets in the ring got my utmost respect. But it wasn't that I'm just assessing the fight. It wasn't that Fury went in and beat the crap out of him and it was nothing else left of him. So it wasn't that at all.
obviously, styles make fights comes into it as well. But once again, Johnathon, if those guys were both able to, fight in the same manner, who would you see winning that fight between Joshua and Fury?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. You give me that, I'll try not to answer it. That's why I said what I said, because it's such a tough one, man. I like both guys. But I always tend to side with the gold medalist. So in this case, Joshua's the gold medalist, and I will side with Joshua for this one. Because it's just, like, throughout history, if you look at it, very rare a heavyweight becomes champion not being a gold medalist. And usually the gold medalist winners become more of a dominant world champion than the ones that's not. So I think AJ would have won it.
Yeah, that is kind of true, but not in the UK. We had forever, didn't we? We've had loads of gold medalists and all that, and none of them won a world title.
That's normally.
Yeah, it's crazy. James DeGale did it the first, and Joshua was obviously the second to do it. But we've had loads of world champions that were silver medalists or not even in the Olympics. It's a funny way it's worked over here. Okay, back onto Wladimir, Johnathon. I just wanted to ask what is next for Wladimir. I understand that there was a rematch clause in the contract. Wladimir may fancy going for the WBO or even the WBC titles, or of course retire. Do you know at this stage if any of those options are more likely, or if if you can rule any of those options out at all at this stage?
I can't rule anything out, unfortunately. I did speak to Wladimir today. We FaceTimed each other today, just talking. And right now, everything is still emotional right now. Emotions don't really calm down to maybe a couple of days after the fight, maybe a week after the fight. So there's no decisions to be made right now because of the situation. So right now, I mean, I don't know of anything right now.
And after the Fury fight, it was quite, it was made quite public. Vitaly told Wladimir exactly how he felt about it. He seemed a little frustrated with Wladimir. He said that Wladimir was terrible that night. How has he taken this loss, Vitaly? Has he been critical towards Wladimir or supportive, if you know?
I think a little bit of both, because of the ups and downs in the fight. When Wladimir hit the canvas, everybody, like, you got 90,000, you probably had 89,900 people thought the fight was over in that arena that night. They thought it was over when he hit the canvas because they haven't seen him hit the canvas in a long time. And they thought it was over. And the way he got back up and rallied back, I think he showed all the heart. He showed more heart in that fight. One guy told me he showed more heart and ability in that fight than he did in the last decade. But going back to your question of was Vitaly critical of him, I think Vitaly always critical of his little brother. And he wants the best for his little brother. So I mean, I can't help but to think that maybe he was. I haven't heard anything he said to him. I haven't heard anything to say whether he was critical or wasn't critical towards him.
Okay, fair enough. And the final two questions now for you, Johnathon. The USB stick, it came as a bit of a surprise when he pulled it out. It was like it was like a bit of a prop. It could have been perceived a little bit as some kind of mind games. I'm not telling you to tell us what is on it, but have you got any clue what's on it yourself?
Well, I'll tell you this. It wasn't a mind game. He's doing it for awareness for sick children. He's finding a way to continue to support and donate to the Children and Youth Foundation, because he's doing a lot for children, not only in the Ukraine and not only in Africa, but throughout the world. His charity does a lot for youth, for sports and education. And that's really what it was all about, was sports and education. And the USB stick was just was something that he decided to put into it to add more, see if he could add more value to the cause. It's all, at the end of the day, it's all about the cause for helping out the unfortunate children for sports and education. That's really what it's all about. That's been his desire for many years, and he's been working on it for many years. He helped build schools. he helped do so many things for unfortunate children that don't have the luxuries that everybody else takes for granted. So that's really what that was all about.
Yeah, Wladimir should be commended for that. Him and Vitaly, they've done a lot over the years. I just had this feeling, Johnathon, that when he said that the prediction was on it, I just had this image in my head that you were strapped up with a video camera and he behind the camera and he was in front of it.
No, it wasn't something like that. He did that. He did it actually privately actually to himself, and that's really how that happened. But he said he wanted to find a way to continue to raise money and awareness for these different projects for the children, and that's really what it's all about for him.
Of course. Okay, so last question now, Johnathon. Really, you're back in the US at the moment. What's next for you in the coming weeks or so, JB?
Well, this Saturday I leave to go to Spain to train pound for pound women's queen of boxing, Cecilia Brækhus. The only undisputed champion we have in the sport today, and that's my next. She fights July 9th in Bergen, Norway, her hometown in Norway, and that's what's next for me.
Excellent stuff, and we wish her all the best as well. Okay, listen, Johnathon, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for once again making time for us, and please send my support to Wladimir.
Thank you, I will, man. I appreciate you reaching out. It's always a pleasure, man. Anytime.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the preview part. But as I said at the top of the show, we're going to go into 2 little segments. 1 being the news and 2 being the current crop of heavyweights at the top of the heavyweight division. So Ayaz, first, I'm going to bring you in with this week's news.
Luis Ortiz has predicted a knockout win over Anthony Joshua within 8 rounds if he is confirmed as the next challenger for the British World Champion.
Yeah, I think I'm going to tie the Joshua and the heavyweight little segment I just spoke about. I think we're going to tie that in with the news here. Obviously Luis Ortiz wants that fight. Luis Ortiz, nobody quite knows how old he really is. He's listed at a certain age. No one believes that's his real age. No one is quite sure how old he is. So, if that fight happens soon, I suppose the sooner the better, really. Once again, I say the same thing as I did about the Klitschko fight. Joshua's getting better all the time. Luis Ortiz and Klitschko, I think, are kind of at the end of their careers now. Or not at the end of their careers, but at the end of their tether. I think they're not getting any fitter, they're not getting any younger, and I don't think they're really learning much at this point in their careers. Many people didn't really think, or we had another question answered about Anthony Joshua on that fight last Saturday. We didn't know if he could go past round 7. We didn't know if he could, go on to those later rounds. He did really well. He got to 11. Of course, he did have a couple of second wins, maybe even a third win, but he did do it. I just don't think he can do it at a pace that, a really active, quick, fit heavyweight, young heavyweight as well, could do it at. So, you may laugh or whatever, but Wladimir Klitschko, he's not as active as what he was. He was very good on his feet, and he was also the man pressing the fight as well. I forgot to add that in there. He was the man going forward. He had Joshua on the back foot the whole time, as I mentioned to Johnathon Banks there. But, for me, I think that Anthony Joshua can probably go 11, 12 rounds, but it's with that kind of opponent. Wladimir, he's not as active. He doesn't throw as many shots as some of the younger guys like Joseph Parker would throw, or to make it interesting, Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, the way he would box, at that fast pace for 12 whole rounds, that is a thing. Could Joshua deal with that? I'm not too sure. But, could Luis Ortiz maybe get him out of there inside 8? Well, I suppose we'd have to wait and see. We seen Joshua take on a southpaw in Charles Martin, and he didn't have any problems with him whatsoever. But Luis Ortiz is a whole different ball game, so it'd be an interesting fight. But yeah, that's a great fight, Ayaz. That is a great fight. I'd like to see that. What I was basically going to say is, I think, and I think you agree with me as well, Ayaz. If I'm wrong, then jump in. First and foremost, I'd put Tyson Fury as the number 1 heavyweight in the world, but obviously he's not been active, so for now I'm gonna take him out of the rankings. Would you agree with that? Is that right? Are you with me on that?
Yes, I agree with you with that because Tyson Fury has been inactive since that impressive win over Wladimir Klitschko in November 2015.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, I'm not sure what's going on. He's got a hearing in June and whatever, but you know, as the old saying goes, to be the man, you got to beat the man. He beat Wladimir Klitschko. I'm sick of saying that. He did it. He became the man. He took all the belts and all that, and he hasn't lost since. He's had some things out of the ring. That's another story. So I'm going to put him to the side for a minute. If he comes back, he's number one. Okay. So yeah, putting him to the side. You've got to put Anthony Joshua as the number one heavyweight in the world for me. I think that is what it is now, and I'd probably say Wladimir Klitschko's maybe number two. I think what we can do, Ayaz, is probably give our top 5 heavyweights in the world. You know, not including Fury. I'm going to give my. Well, you give your top 5 first. I'll give mine after.
With Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, so he'd be number 1. Yeah.
Yep. Wladimir Klitschko.
Number 2. Yeah.
Deontay Wilder.
Number 3. Yep.
Povetkin.
Yeah, that's the one that people forget. Yeah, that's 4.
Yep. And number 5.
I mean, you've got. I can throw a few names if you
want. I will go with if it has to be. In my opinion, number 5 has to be Luis Ortiz. I would say Joseph Parker, but we haven't really seen much of him. So I'll go number 5 has to be Luis Ortiz.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much sort of agree with you. I'd definitely put Anthony Joshua number 1. I'd put Wladimir Klitschko number 2. I'd put Deontay Wilder number 3. My 4 and 5 is out of Povetkin, Pulev, and Luis Ortiz. I think we've got to remember Pulev in there. But no, it's, you know, the few guys at the top. Who would you want to see Joshua fight next, Ayaz? Who do you think has got a chance of beating Joshua? Right now, I don't think. Well, I don't know. The Wladimir fight's obviously happened. If that does happen again, which I'm not sure it will, you know, Wladimir gets older. It might be a different fight next time round. So put that aside. Who would you say has got a good chance? Because before Saturday night, I would have said that Joshua and Deontay Wilder's a 50-50 fight. Now I say it's probably a 60-40 in favour of Joshua. Remember, Wilder can just put you out with any punch at any given time, even if he's losing every single second of the fight. Yeah, for me, I think Deontay Wilder, I'd like to see him fight Joshua. I'd like to see the Luis Ortiz fight, though I don't think that will happen. I think Pulev is now the mandatory as well for that fight. I think they've got to fight him next. Oh, it's an interesting... Povetkin as well. Who would you want to see Joshua fight next, Ayaz, if it was up to you? Klitschko, Povetkin, Pulev, Wilder, Ortiz, or Parker?
I'll tell you who I'll go with. 100% no joke. It would be Deontay Wilder, because I'll tell you what, that is the most interesting fight. It's like who lands first. Now, we've seen Wilder. Wilder needs a big name fight. He has not fought anyone very decent. Who's his last 3 opponents? Johan Duhaupas. He's fought Gerald Washington.
Yep.
And
Arthur Spilker.
Arthur Spilker. The
Duhaupas fight was actually 4 fights ago. He fought Chris Arreola.
Yes,
that was a farce, that fight.
Yeah,
you've got to be honest. I mean, you know, he's fought these guys, but I will say he was losing the Washington fight. He was losing the Spilker fight, in my opinion. And Arreola, well, I'm not even sure why he was there. He sneaked into the top 15 on fight week. It was dreadful. That was a terrible fight.
Now here comes the part, right? He's knocking them out. But the thing is, he's losing the fight on points. Now, Wilder, in my opinion, and Joshua will be the most perfect fight because, first of all, it's a 50-50 fight, and whoever lands first wins the fight. I reckon I would love to see Joshua with that fight. However, that fight is not going to happen next because why? I tell you who I reckon Joshua, in my opinion, will fight next. I reckon it'll be Pulev.
Well, it's a funny situation because the Sauerlands this week were saying that Pulev is the mandatory no matter what. They have to fight, you know, the winner has to defend against him next. But there's a rematch clause. Now, if you remember, Ayaz, the whole reason the IBF title was vacated, well, not vacated, but stripped by Tyson Fury, and then Joshua ended up with it, which a lot of people like to forget, is because there was a mandatory in place, which was Glazkov, and he was, Fury had to defend against Glazkov, but he was already tied up in a rematch clause with Wladimir Klitschko. So, I don't know if Eddie Hearn's men or whatever, or Eddie Hearn himself, are a bit more clever, a bit smarter, a bit more shrewd than Mick Hennessy and his team, but I don't think that the IBF or the WBA, I'm not sure which mandatory it is. I think it's the WBA. I think Pulev is actually the mandatory for the WBA. I don't think that they're going to strip him if he decides to fight Klitschko next. He's mandatory for the IBF. Okay, well that makes it even more interesting. I thought it was WBA. Are the IBF going to strip him now if he rematches Klitschko? Because they should do. Because that's the way that's the way he won that title. He won it because it was stripped to Tyson Fury because he had he was tied up with a rematch clause with Klitschko. Charles Martin fought Glazkov for it because Glazkov was number 1 ranked guy and Charles Martin was number 2. Glazkov was winning the fight. He dislocates his knee. Charles Martin, wins the fight because Glazkov can't carry on, so he wins by knockout even though he was losing. He comes to England, defends it, and loses in 2 rounds. And that is the story of how Joshua became champion. So they should strip him. They really should. If they're gonna, you can't have rules for one and rules for other. Just because Eddie Hearn's got a good relationship with the IBF, I do not want to see them showing some favouritism. That is the last thing we need. That really is. So it's an interesting situation, the whole thing there. And I'm glad that we've done this little segment. We've talked on some valuable points, I think, in the heavyweight division, the politics, the top contenders, who we want to see Joshua fight next. And I think, I agree with you, Ayaz. I think that the Deontay Wilder fight is a great fight. Both men, I don't want to say relatively untested. I think Joshua has come through it now. I think he's the man to beat right now. I think he's come through a test, even though Vladimir's seen better days, which again, some people were saying he's the worst thing ever. He's going to get blown out in 2 rounds. He's an old man overnight. He lost to Fury. He didn't look himself. He's terrible. He's shot. And then all of a sudden, it's the best Wladimir in years. It makes me sick. It really does. But you can't pick and choose. It's one or the other. I think he's come through that test, Joshua. I think he's the man to beat. I think Deontay Wilder is a great fight for him. Deontay Wilder's had double the fights. He's had 38 fights. Joshua now 19-0 with 19 knockouts. Wilder, I think he's 38-0 with 37 knockouts. He's obviously fought a long list of bums, to be completely honest. But still, both men, they've only had really one proper fight. Joshua's had the better fight. I think it's a good fight. When Deontay Wilder boxes, he's actually really effective, but he just relies on that punch too much, which he's landed on all but one person, and the one guy he didn't land it on, which was Stavern, he scored him. He showed us a boxing lesson, which we've never seen him do, and we've never seen it since, by the way. But I don't think his form's been too great lately. I think he's been relying too much on that big right hand, which every time gets him out of danger. So I think it's a brilliant, brilliant fight. Any more to add on this little heavyweight segment, Ayaz, or should we move on to the previewing?
Move on to the previewing.
Okay, mate. Right, on to the previewing now. This is time to preview the fights this weekend, so there's not too much going on. We're going to start with a card in Russia. One fight to mention on this bill, former featherweight world champion Evgeny Gradovich. His record at the moment 22-2 with 1 draw. He defends his WBA Intercontinental Super Bantamweight title against Hugo Berrio, who has a record of 23-6. I don't really know too much about him. He's also got 1 draw. That's a 12-rounder at Super Bantamweight. That's it for Russia. Moving over now to the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. One fight to mention on this bill, in all honesty, Yuriorkis Gamboa, former world champion. He's back in a 10-rounder at lightweight. His record 26-1. He takes on Robinson Castellanos, who has a record of 23-12. Gamboa back active, that's what we want to see. Moving over now to New Zealand, we were supposed to see the Furies out there. It was supposed to be Hughie Fury challenging for the world title, but it's now a man called Razvan Kojanu, who has a record of 16-2. It's not overly impressive, but they didn't have much time to still stay in line with the already proposed date, which was the 6th of May, this Saturday. Joseph Parker 22-2, putting his WBO World Heavyweight title on the line. We wish him all the very best. He's a great guy. John Parker also on the bill, that's his brother. Umar Salamov's on this bill as well. His record 18-0. He takes on Emil Markic, who has a record of 24-1. That's a 10-rounder at light heavyweight for the vacant WBO international title. That's it for New Zealand. Moving over now to Poland. One fight to mention on this bill. Adam Bałski, 8-0, prospect at cruiserweight. He's in an 8-rounder against Ricards Bolotniks, who has a record of 10-3 with one draw. Adam Bałski should probably get the job done there in good fashion. Adam Bałski is actually a man we're going to be, we're going to know a lot about him in the coming years. He's a great talent. That's it for Poland. Moving over now to the final bill. This is a fantastic bill. It's live on Box Nation, I believe, from 2 a.m. this Saturday night, or Sunday morning to be more precise. We're going to start with the undercard. David Lemieux, former world champion, 37-3. Boy, can he bang. He's in there against Marcos Reyes, 35-4. That should be a good fight. I actually think Lemieux is very underrated. I think that many people believe, really, he relies on his power a little bit too much. But for me, I think he can box as well when he tries to. We saw Golovkin give him a lot of respect. And I think that his last fight, when Lemieux went out there and knocked out Curtis Stevens in great fashion, I think he really performed that night there. Obviously, that being just last month, or, well, we're now in May, so it was 2 months ago, but a good win there. And he's out against Marco Reyes. Marco Reyes has only been stopped once, and that was very early on in his career. I think maybe about 10 fights or so into his professional career. He's also took on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., to which he lost on points over 10 rounds. So we should bear that in mind, because that man, of course, is in the main event on this bill. Moving up the undercard, Lucas Matisse. He's in a 10-rounder at welterweight. I'm not sure it's his best weight. His record at the moment, 37-4. Boy, can he bang as well. He takes on former opponent of Adrian Broner, Emmanuel Taylor. Emmanuel Taylor, really a guy who, let's not mince our words. He's in there to lose the fight. He's in there probably to be stopped. But I think it's a bit of a tough fight coming back to. Emmanuel Taylor can box as well. He's a very underrated boxer. He's never been stopped as well. And we know that, the power puncher is Lucas Matisse. Emmanuel Taylor, I suppose, can bang a little bit himself, but he's gone the distance and lost to Adrian Broner. Chris Algieri got a decent win over Karim Mayfield in 2014, but that's a great fight. And Lucas Matisse, as I say, I'm not too sure he should be at 147, but he's coming off of a long layoff, Lucas Matisse. He's been out the ring for over 18 months when he got KO'd in round 10 against Victor Postel for the WBC World Super Lightweight title down at 140. When he heard something in his eye go snap, which was all a bit mad. We thought he quit. We weren't too sure about his credibility. That was one of the first fights we covered on the podcast back in 2015 there. Moving up the undercard once again, the very talented young prospect Joseph Diaz. His record 23-0. He's in a 10-rounder against Manuel Avila, who has a record of 22-0. So both men with a combined record of 45-0. Somebody's O's got to go. I'm backing Joseph Diaz. He's a great fighter. He's definitely a danger at featherweight. The man can fight and land a variation of shots going backwards, which is very, very rare. He's very talented, Joseph Diaz. He's a pleasure to watch, and definitely one I'm going to be tuning in to see with a keen eye. And the main event at a catch weight of 164.5 pounds. It's a very extraordinary one. It's up at super middleweight, I suppose, because it's above the 160 limit. And it's under the 168 limit. So, it kind of is a super middleweight clash, but it is also a catchweight. There's no titles on the line, but it's a huge, huge fight. Not just for the United States, but in Mexico, it is literally every single Mexican is going to be at a TV watching this fight. Saul Canelo Alvarez, 48-1 with one draw, takes on the son of a legend, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., 50 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Both men, combined wins, 98 wins between them. That is crazy for two modern-day fighters. Both very much got a lot left, in terms of their careers in the sport as well. Both men, 3 losses combined and 2 draws. Obviously, Canelo is in there as, the young guy. He's got the youth on his side. Obviously, the one time he didn't look so great was against Lara. He didn't look overly great against Lara, and obviously he was schooled by Floyd Mayweather. But that was a long time ago. Canelo's looked very destructive in recent times, getting rid of many opponents lately. He's a fantastic fighter. He's obviously the man on the up, so to speak, and he takes on, as I say, an absolute megastar in Mexico, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He's been knocked previously for not taking the sport seriously, but he looks to be in monster shape. He really does. Obviously, he picked up a loss in 2015 in April against Fonfara, and that was, a fight where he really didn't look good at all. He was completely losing every round against Fonfara, who was, a little bit average, to be completely honest. Since then, he hasn't looked overly great. He took on Marcos Reyes. He won that fight. It was a little bit close as well. Marcos Reyes, as I said, he's actually on the undercard. He takes on David Lemieux, as I just mentioned. And then he took on Dominic Britch, which I didn't know too much about, but he took him on in his native of Mexico. So, yeah, Britch was a fight where he pretty much won the fight every round. I think it was 9-1 in terms of rounds. It was a 10-rounder. And now he's in there against Canelo Alvarez. And as I said, Canelo coming off of a bit of a streak since the Floyd Mayweather fight. He's knocked out Amir Khan, he's knocked out Liam Smith, he's knocked out Angulo, very close fight with Lara, he knocked out Kirkland, and a unanimous decision win over Miguel Cotto. So what a fight this is going to be, Ayaz. I don't think there's much more to go over in terms of breaking it down. You can give a breakdown if you want. You can see, you can give your point or whatever, but we're definitely going to go to the predictions on this one, Ayaz. Julio Cesar Chavez, he's been knocked out the one time. He was stopped in that fight against Fonfara. Canelo never been stopped. Do you see a knockout in this fight at all? Any other thoughts on this fight? Just go.
This is the Battle of Mexico, basically. Let's see, Viva la Mexico.
Cinco de Mayo, baby.
Yes, I'll tell you so, right? This fight is not going to be a knockout. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. being trained by a legendary trainer, which is former Marquez's trainer, Nacho Beristain. And I'll tell you something, his training is very good. But if I'm going to go for a win, I'm going to go for Canelo win on points. And with Canelo's win, that's going to take him to a Golovkin fight in September.
Oh, well, that would be absolutely brilliant. That is a real, that'd be great. Hopefully it does go to plan like that. I'm gonna disagree. I think that Canelo's gonna win by stoppage, Ayaz. I'm not sure what the prediction league is. I think it's your job to keep that, but oh gosh, you don't remember what it was, do you? We really need to get on top of this. I think it was 5-4 to me, so this could level it up. Write that down as 5-4 to me, so we don't forget again. We need to really be predicting more fights, make it a little bit more exciting. But yeah, I think Canelo's going to probably get the job done in that fight. To be completely honest, I think he's going to get the job done. I think he's going to get rid of him. Julio Cesar Chavez, the size is with him, isn't it? He looks really big compared to Canelo. But Canelo, in his recent few fights, has shown us quite a lot of speed as well. I think he really came on leaps and bounds since losing to Mayweather. I think he's looked a whole different fighter. And even though, I'm going to go against the grain, even though Chavez Jr. has got a great chin, I think he might just get stopped. I don't know if he's going to quit or anything like that, but I think he just may get stopped. I'm going to go against you there just to make it interesting anyway, but what a fight. And the whole card's great. As I say, there's 4 fights on that bill that I'm looking forward to. The Lemieux fight, the Matisse fight, the Diaz fight, and of course the Canelo and Chavez fight. So it's a great fight for the UK. It's a great fight for everywhere in the world, especially Mexico, as we touched on. That's it for the previewing. That's it from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's been another episode of the BoxHard Podcast. We've done all the talking. We've done the reviewing. We did the first interview. We did the previewing. We also did the little segment, which I hope you enjoyed, the heavyweight division. We were discussing what's the latest, what's going on there, a little piece on the news that we did as well. And just before we wrap up the show, we're going to do what we always do. We're going to bring in guest number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a man simply known as The Savage. It's, of course, Mr. Sam Eggington. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for that for having me again, pal.
Hey, it's always my pleasure, my friend. Now, Sam, you're fighting next weekend on the Cal Yafai undercard in Birmingham. We'll get on to that in a moment. But firstly, let's go back to your last fight. We spoke to you I believe it was probably fight week, sometime just before that fight. A lot of people doubted you going in. It was a tough fight to call, but me and you both said that the timing was perfect for you. We really felt that. Boy, oh boy, did you do a job on Paulie Malignaggi. Were you impressed with that performance, Sam? How do you react to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a good performance. I definitely thought it was a decent performance for the opponent I was going against. I mean, he's tricky. He's he's well seasoned, and I understand that it wasn't the best time in his career, but he had all the ingredients to beat me, and I thought I avoided a lot of his stuff and got the win, a good win.
Yeah, you certainly did. There was a moment in that fight, Sam, where you kind of put your gloves down and let Paulie tee off on you. There's no easy way to ask you this, but why on earth did you do that, Sam?
Do you know what? He caught me with a good 1-2. It was a 1-2, and it was a nice 1-2. I mean, the jab was, weren't really even as sharp, but the right hand come through nice and heavy and on the point, and it caught me nice. And then, so I tucked up, and I thought, I'm standing there and I'm taking a few shots, and this is where he started wailing away, and I thought to myself, if I was a ref and someone just got caught with, with a solid 1-2 and was just standing there tucked up, I think about jumping in, because I don't know if he's hurt or what. So I was thinking, do I stay tucked up, or do I try and shot at this point? I'm okay now. I've shook it off, or do I try and show the ref somehow that I've took a good shot, but I am okay. And that's what I went with. And it looked daft, but do you know what? I honestly thought, after that 1-2 and the ref seeing it, I thought the ref was going to jump in. So I just had to try and prove to the ref that in some, I mean, I probably could have proved it a bit better. Just to move my feet would probably would have been easier. But just show the ref that I was fine. And that's the method I went with. It was daft, but luckily enough, the fight weren't stopped, and it all ended well.
Yeah, no, it made for great viewing anyway, I will say that. Also, Sam, a lot of people kind of say that Paulie, I mean, he decided to retire 2 days later, but but a lot of people say that he's not a big puncher. We pretty much know that looking at it on paper. Is he actually a bigger puncher than people make him out to be?
He's very, when he wants to hit you hard and correct, he will. But a lot of the time, it's what he does, and it's in and he's out, and he's skillful. But he can definitely sit down and throw a big shot. I mean, like I say, he caught me with that 1-2, and it was a nice 1-2, mate. I mean, the right hand really did catch me. But anyone at that level, they've got to have some sort of, I know he's not the biggest. He ain't got the best stoppage record, but at that level, at world level, you've got to be able to hit correct, and he definitely can do that.
Yeah, and ultimately you got rid of him in round 8 with a brutal body shot. On to the next one. Your next fight, as I mentioned there, next weekend at the Barclaycard Arena in Birmingham, your hometown. You're taking on Ceferino Rodriguez. What do you know about him, Sam, aside from him obviously being the European champion? One thing I didn't actually know was that he's promoted by the former middleweight world champion Sergio Martinez.
Sergio Martinez, yeah. Honestly, mate, I don't watch him. I don't watch opponents. I'll go off what the coaches tell me, because everyone looks great on the internet, and some people might get a lot off watching the videos, and they might see what they do good and do bad. But with me, mate, I just see everything they do is good, so it don't help me out. I just go off the coach's methods, and we'll go from like the last time, from round to round.
Yeah, fair enough. A lot of people kind of do the same thing as you there. A lot of people I speak to say the same sort of stuff. Now, Sam, we all know that the way your boxing career started, walking into the gym looking for a way to earn some money, even if it meant you were going to be a journeyman. Now you're looking at fighting for the European title. This will be your 6th title that you've boxed for. Do you feel that you've overachieved on what you were originally set out to do, Sam?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I overachieved when I won the Midlands. But the fact is, I didn't want to. I weren't bothered about winning or losing. So, getting the Midlands title was a huge title for me. Look, funny enough, I think it was 3 years ago yesterday. So, everything's an overachievement, mate. I never take nothing for granted. I mean, I know I'm not meant to be where I'm at. It's just all hard work, so just carry on.
And what is the plan now, Sam? You keep winning these fights when people doubt your capabilities. If I'm not mistaken, you're currently ranked at number 12 with the WBC. If you win this European title, in your honest opinion, do you feel that you'll need a couple of defences of that title before being ready to move on to perhaps world level? Or do you feel ready for world level even sooner than that?
No, I think there's been talks about a few defences. Hopefully, we'll get one in before the end of the year. Maybe two, depending on how they go. But we'll definitely need a few defences. But, come the new year, mate, I'm taking all comers. I mean, I'm not here to sit about. I mean, I think I've proved that. I take every fight they offer me, and it's gone fine from up until now. So, don't fix something that's not broken. So, if they offer me a fight, someone brings it up, big fight, whether it's on this side of the pond or not, I'm taking it.
And we spoke about the Brook and Spence fight when you were last on the show, but now it's officially on. I don't think it had been officially announced at that point. Sam, do you secretly have one eye on that fight?
I suppose. I mean, if Carl Brook wins, I think it's more doable. I think it's probably a bit more. I think it's more likely to come off if Carl Brook wins. So being the same promoters and stuff. But I suppose so. I mean, there's only one step after the European, and if someone offers me a world title when they win the European, I'm going to take it, no matter what champion it is. So, I suppose, yeah, I have my eyes on all the world title fights from now on. From now on, mate. To be fair.
And Sam, the three champions that are out there at 147, world champions. You got Kell Brook, you got Furman, who just unified with Danny Garcia, and obviously you've got Manny Pacquiao. It's a very talented three. We know that. Who would you say out of those three guys is the more beatable guy at this point?
Honestly, mate, they're all.
It's a tough one,
mate. Yeah, it's you can't really pick one if I'm honest. I mean. It's a tough division, mate. I mean, David Aranyesan just lost a WBA regular to Lamont Peterson. I think I'd be looking at that one quite close if when I win the European. I think that's one I'd be happy to take.
Yeah.
The others, I think I knew a bit too much. I think might be a bit soon, but like I say, if any of them offered me the fight, I would take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, for sure. I don't doubt that at all. This weekend, you may or may not be interested in it. You can say your opinion if you've got one. Canelo and Chavez Jr. You got any interest in that in terms of a fan perspective?
Yeah, I love Canelo. Honestly, I mean the way he boxes and stuff. I think he's unbelievable. But Chavez is a massive middleweight, but I think Canelo comes out. I think he might stop him later on.
Yeah, I said that earlier on in the show. I think that he's going to probably win that fight by stoppage, which would be a huge win. Sam, I'm guessing you probably watched the huge fight last weekend, Joshua Klitschko. Any reaction to that?
Yeah, mate. I mean, I know some people are having a go, and most people are giving him credit, but I can't see how you can have a pop at him really. Klitschko, he's a quality operator. I mean, it only shows how long he's been at the top. But and Joshua went down, but it's heavyweight boxing. If you don't go down at some point, then I suppose it's bound to happen. So I don't think you can put much into heavyweight to be knocked down because they're all 16, 17, 18 stone. Someone's going down at some point. So. And he got back up from a big, heavy knockdown. That right hand caught him at the top of the head, and it was solid. And he got back up, regrouped after 3 rounds, and got the stoppage. So I think he looked quality doing it.
Yeah, I have to agree. It was a good win for him, of course. He definitely, comes through the first real test by, don't want to say flying colours, but, he got the job done by hook or by crook. And Sam, finally, just before I let you go, I just wanted to really give you an opportunity to send out a message to any of your fans that may be listening, any of your supporters, any of your sponsors, anything like that in particular.
I just want to say a massive thanks to all the sport's been great for this one. Tickets have flew out. Social media's gone wild. And of course, every sponsor, I've just, funny enough, I've just given them a shout out on social media as you went. They know who they are. And I just want to say a huge thank you to them all.
Absolutely, well said. Okay, listen, Sam, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for talking to us just after a training session. I know you're very, very tired and all that. Best of luck for next weekend, and we'll catch up sometime afterwards,
mate.
my friend.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, that wraps up the 81st edition of the BoxHard Podcast. On this week's show, we've talked about the latest news, the current crop of heavyweights, Joshua's battle with Dr. Steelhammer in front of a packed-out Wembley arena. We've given our thoughts on the Battle of Mexico between Canelo and Chavez and much more. It's been a blast, in my honest opinion. I'd like to thank our two guests, the very honest former British champion Sam Eggington and the very modest Johnathon Banks. That Johnathon Banks interview was golden. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Summer has done his part too. We'll be back next week as per usual. Thanks for listening and take care.